Welcome to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. I'm Mike Calabrese, joined as always by Sean Zerillo. We're going to have Grant Neiffer here at the end of the episode for more dingers here on his Tuesday card. But Sean's going to walk us through a robust lineup here in the bigs. He's got a huge card to get into. So let's start with a question first, kind of zooming out, not necessarily in the weeds on the gambling front, but more so kind of on roster building and how teams manage their farm systems. And in honor of the College World Series kicking off on Friday, let's talk about a former megastar on the college diamond, Jack Caglione. The question for you, Sean, is do you think the Royals have rushed him up at all? I mean, he's 6 for 25 with a pair of doubles to start his career. He's certainly not, in over his head, but they don't need him to be a cleanup hitter yet. They have him in the 6 hole. Fast tracking a young star like this, are you in favor of it, or do you think it runs the risk of potentially shattering his confidence early in his career?
I don't think they rushed him specifically with regard to rushing other prospects. I definitely think that can be a thing. You can tank guys' confidence, bringing them up too early, putting them against pitching that they're not necessarily ready for, and then they go back down. They're facing a much easier level of pitching. They don't have to make adjustments because they could just think about it more from a pitcher perspective than a hitter perspective, where you're able to just blow velocity by guys in the minors that you're not going to get past them at the major league level. So, with pitching development, I think it's an even different evaluation process than with hitters. And I feel like pitchers, when they come up and then go back down, they may have a harder time adjusting. But Jack, the biggest concern was defense because he crushes the ball. He had some of the hardest hit balls in AAA. Even some of the swings that he's already taken in terms of bat speed metrics at the MLB level rank up there with some of the top guys in the league. So the bat is clearly major league ready. Just hitting the ball on the ground a little bit too much. He needs to change the launch angle, get the ball in the air. He's hitting the ball really hard. It just happened to be on the ground. But even, the first big league at bat he had, he got robbed by Victor Scott out in center field. So he's hitting the ball plenty hard. The defense was the big concern. I've seen him make some decent plays out in right field. He is -1 in terms of defensive runs saved so far through 4 games, 5 games, whatever it is. So, the defense might be an issue, but the Royals just need offense and need offense from anywhere they can get it. We'll talk about the Royals in a bit and their offense. But I think it was a perfectly fine time to call him up, considering their needs as an organization. And I think clearly based on how hard he swings and his contact rates, his in-zone contact rates in AAA were phenomenal as well. He just wasn't missing the ball in the zone. So superstar potential. When you combine that elite power with the ability to put the bat on the ball in the zone, I think it's a matter of time before he starts putting the ball in the air and hitting home runs. And I do think he's going to have a very strong finish to this season as long as he's able to make the proper adjustments. But defense is the piece to watch. And, watching him track down balls, he's a big dude. Watching him track down balls in right field could be an adventure at times. But he's very athletic. He pitched, he hit. And, these elite athletes tend to find their way into improving. I think about Alex Gordon for the Royals back in the day when he first got shifted off of third base. He was miserable at third base, got shifted off of third base to left field. Then he became like a gold glove left fielder. These guys who are elite athletes who are drafted high in the first round are very athletic, and they do tend to figure things out. And if Jack ends up becoming a plus right fielder at some point in his career, wouldn't shock me at any point. Not something I'm going to project, not something anybody should expect, but given the athleticism, I don't think it's something that should surprise people either.
As you mentioned, you like the Royals tonight, but we're going to save that for your underdog segment. Let's get things kick-started here with your best bet, which are the Astros and the White Sox under 8. Only 2 teams average less than 3 runs per game on the road, and we get one of them here in the White Sox. It explains why the Red Sox road unders have paid out at the 3rd highest clip, most profitable clip in the AL. Speaking of trends, under has cashed in 6 of their last 9 games, and now the Astros go ahead and they send Lance McCullers to the hill. And with the exception of being shelled once, he's been pretty solid this entire season. So you got one of the best under teams in terms of when they're playing on the road in the White Sox. And then you have the Astros, who have been trending down in terms of the overall scoring in their games. They're sending, on the other side of this matchup, the White Sox, I should say, Shane Smith, who's been very trustworthy this year. 12 starts, no outing, allowing more than 3 runs. It looks like all the fundamentals of an under are here. I know it's been a difficult season to cash those unders, getting the best number, trying to, essentially play the market, figuring out if there's going to be a half run worth of movements. Is this one you want to lock in right at this moment, and how confident are you feeling? Obviously, it's already your best bet here for Tuesday.
Yeah, I make this total about 7.25, so under down to 7.5 at even money. This has moved a little bit. There are still some 7.5, some juiced 8s out there. Lance McCullers just been so much better in his past few starts than he was in his first three, coming off of that UCL injury. Hadn't pitched since 2022. First few starts were not great, and even the pitch modeling metrics on him in those starts were bad. 95 stuff plus, 83 location plus, 83 pitching plus, a bot ERA of 5.5. His past three starts, bot ERA has fallen all the way to 3.2. Stuff plus of 108, location plus of 102, 106 pitching plus, and you see the strikeout and walk numbers are pretty elite over that span as well. 19 strikeouts, 2 walks in his past 2 starts. So I think Lance McCullers has found his form. 125 stuff plus on the slider, 123 on the knuckle curve. He can spin the ball like crazy and get guys to swing over the top and miss. And the Astros are in their much lesser split. You want to target the Astros offensively against left-handed pitching and target against them with right-handed pitching because they have massive splits. They're third against lefties, 21st against righties, and a 26-point gap in terms of WRC plus, 23% above average against righties, or 23% above average against lefties, 3% below against right-handed pitching. So really good matchup for Shane Smith here, who, as you said, has been quite effective. About a league average pitcher, mostly with his plus changeup. That is really what he's looking to set up constantly. But an expected ERA of 3.6 for Smith. And I think McCullers can pitch to that level or below the rest of the way. Around a mid-threes ERA is where I'd put McCullers, even in the low threes, if he can continue to flash the stuff that he did in his past 2 outings. So as I said, I make this about 7.25, bet the under to 7.5 at even money. And we'll talk about, once we get into the final bets of the day, I'll kind of tee up that section. There's a number of overs in that section. I'll kind of tee that up talking about the general over and under trend for the market this year and why I think there might be a bunch of value on overs today. There was yesterday. Overs won 8-1 yesterday, and why I think in the next couple of weeks there might be as well. So we'll talk about a dog, and then we'll go back to some overs.
Not just one dog, 2 dogs for this segment. Let's start with Kansas City plus 170. We're fading Max Fried. Oh boy, the lefty has been unhittable in just about every start, with the exception of that matchup against the Dodgers, who crushed him. 8 hits, 6 earned, 2 bombs. But outside of that, he's been an AL Cy Young threat, really the only threat to Skubal to potentially win that hardware. But the Royals counter with phenom Noah Cameron, whose cutter and curve have really been deadly across his first 5 starts. All of those starts, by the way, have been quality starts. His whip, 0.79, his ERA, 0.85. Is he ready to deal with this Yankees lineup? Because it's going to be a big step up in class in terms of the lineups he's faced thus far.
Yeah, I think Noah Cameron is quite good. I bet him very small, I think 100th of a unit for AL Rookie of the Year before the season, because I thought the Royals had no pitching depth. I thought he would be up relatively early. He was, then he went back down, and then he's been back up, but he's pitched really well at the big league level. Now, the Royals overall, I think they've underperformed drastically. Their offense is drastically underperformed at home. They are dead last in terms of WRC plus at home, 73 WRC plus. They have a 651 OPS as a team at home. It's closer to 710 on the road, but they do improve to 13th in terms of WRC plus. So 2% below average on the road, 27% below average at home. And you see the park factors for Kauffman Stadium have tanked as a result this season. There's really no justification why they've hit so bad at home. It's mostly just noise. Now they have Jack up. By the way, we call him, he goes by Jack Caglione. Jack is just his initials. It's just Jeffrey Allen Caglione. I've never seen a person include their surname last initial in their first name abbreviation, so that's kind of fun. But yeah, Jack is just an abbreviation for his initials. Really funny name that we're going to end up calling him for the rest of his career. Probably needs a nickname as well. I don't know if Jack does it for me. Jack the Smack Caglione, that's terrible. Anyway, Max Fried, as well as he's pitched this year. And the Yankees, analytics staff, their pitching coaches fully optimized Fried this year. They changed some pitch grips, changed the locations they have him throwing to. So he has that 1.8 ERA. Expected ERA, though, of 3.4. Strikeout minus walk rate, 19%. So still great. But you look at, the underlying indicators, and I think the most granular data point you can use to compare Cameron and Fried is called strike plus whiff rate. How has Cameron competed in terms of generating called strikes and whiffs thus far in his major league career? Fried, 27.2%. Noah Cameron, 28%. He can compete in terms of getting strikes, getting whiffs. He has a wide arsenal. He throws 6 different pitches, but he doesn't throw anything more than 30% of the time. So he's constantly mixing in offerings to opposing hitters. I think that does give him the potential to get through a lineup multiple times because he has multiple pitches he can go to. And yes, it's a numbers play. I make the Yankees about minus 145. I would bet the Royals down to about plus 160. And there's also value on the over here as well, but there is obviously correlation because you do need the Royals to get some runs on Fried in order to cash one or both tickets. So Royals to plus 160, and then the over 8.5 up to minus 117. I would play the Royals money line a little bit bigger than the over. But yeah, Royals and over the value sides of that matchup. We'll see if either cash. Market, just generally going to be against the Yankees, against the Phillies, against these teams that have played quite well to date, especially when Max Fried is on the mound. We do have a 40-1 Max Fried wins leader ticket, though, so it seems like that's in at least decent position to continue to progress, especially with Garrett Cole going down. I don't know if he'll get past Skubal for the AL Cy Young, but certainly wins leader. I think he's tied with Skubal right now. They're both at 8.
I did not know that about the Royals, Jack. My own Jack, my oldest, is Jack Anthony Calabrese. So a double dip of the Jack. I didn't know that you were even allowed to use that as your nickname if you want to go ahead and use your initials, but good to know. As I mentioned, you have 2 underdogs here for this segment. Let's go to the Sacktown Athletics at plus 140. Straight up, I mean, as soon as I saw this on the sheet, gambling is not for the weak. You are advocating playing a team that is 6 for their last 32. So my question here is, it's probably going to be a bullpen game with Mitch Spence. Does that give you more confidence, less confidence? Is it harder to profile games when they're bullpen games? Or do you have a pretty good feel for who the A's are going to trot out there, assuming that this game doesn't get away from them early?
No, I feel like I handicap bullpen games pretty well, and I think I often show value on them. Spence can get through 5 innings here, so I don't think it's a pure bullpen game. It's not like he's an opener and then there's somebody coming in behind him. That is what they did last night, ultimately. They opened for Jeffrey Springs with Grant Holman. They had Springs announced all day. This is what I hate. I do hate when teams have a guy announced in all day, people bet listed pitcher, et cetera. And then 2 hours before the game, they're like, actually, we're going to use an opener. Like that. I've said this in the past, once a team announces a starting pitcher officially to MLB.com, they should have to pay a fine if they want to change said pitcher and said pitcher pitches in the game. If you want to scratch him because he got injured and he's not going to pitch, by all means. But if he gets changed off of the listed pitcher and then still pitches in the game, you should be fine. That's my opinion. Now, in terms of price, I bet the A's. They opened plus 145. I was like, yeah, this is probably going to go up to plus 150 because they're losing again. They were losing at the point where I was ready to bet this. The game had not ended yet. I think they were down 4-0 at the time. And I was like, surely this will go up to plus 150 because who doesn't want to bet against the A's every day? And I checked the market again. A few minutes later, it had gone down to plus 140. So I grabbed the plus 140. It is now plus 132. I would not bet it past plus 130. Now, one of the differences in Sacramento in terms of their lineup compared to when they last played the Angels, and they got Nick Kurtz back last night. But one of the main differences from the last time they played the Angels is defensively, they have Denzel Clark in center field. And Clark may already be the best defensive outfielder in the big leagues. And I say that with apologies to Pete Armstrong, but Denzel Clark has already generated 8 outs above average. He's 3rd among total outfielders in 16 games. He also has plus 6 defensive runs saved in 16 games. PCA is plus 9 in 66 games. He was plus 11 last season. I believe Clark has already saved 2 or 3 home runs. He had that ridiculous home run robbery last night. Having a very good defensive center fielder does change the construct of your team because it moves other good outfielders typically into the corners. You have a average defensive center fielder, you put him in a corner, he's probably a plus corner. So having a plus defensive center fielder now definitely improves the A's defensively. They've been one of the worst defensive teams in baseball this year, if not the worst. The Angels, though, have also been miserable defensively. So, like I said, it's a numbers play. I made this plus 120, grab plus 140. It's moving to plus 130, would take plus 130 or better, but would not go anywhere beyond that. Not a fun team to bet on. Not too much money line value on the board today, but the Royals and the A's were the 2 ones that popped. I wasn't going to go ahead and leave them behind, considering we got to trust the process here. But yeah, it seems like the line movement is trending in the direction that I ultimately expected. I just, considering how poorly the A's had played, expecting people to tie in parlays on their opponent, et cetera, on a daily basis, right? Like I just expect the A's to get bet against like the Rockies do on a daily basis. And in this instance, it didn't really happen. It did yesterday. Steam came in against them yesterday, but today it seems like the market is showing that the A's are the stud.
As I mentioned, there's a lot of overs here on the rest of your card. Now, Grant Neiffer is in the on-deck circle warming up for his dinger plays coming up in the next segment. But we got 5 overs, 1 under to hit on the rest of your card here on Tuesday. We're going to start in the Battle of Ohio between the Reds and the Guardians. Andrew Abbott finally came back down to earth after an insanely impressive start to his 2025, where his ERA was actually 1.51 through 9 starts and 47 2/3 innings. Did you see something, though, in his last start? He gives up 7 hits, 5 earned, 2 home runs against Milwaukee that makes you confident that the Guardians can touch him up in this matchup as well.
Nothing specific. It's just I think the market is a little bit low on totals right now. And here's why. Unders have absolutely crushed this season. A 3.6% ROI overall, 54% win rate, but it's gotten even more drastic in May and June than it was in April. They were about, I don't know, like a plus 0.2% ROI in April, like just above 500, might have hit it like a 52% clip, but just profitable, right? Unders in April. And we see that sometimes. Sometimes there's months where underdogs are slightly profitable or totals, either over or under slightly profitable, but it does not happen where in May, 55.5% win rate, 6% ROI for unders. And then June, 54.8% win rate, 5.2% ROI. And then yesterday, overs went 8-1. And on Sunday night, when I was handicapping these games, handicapping the slate, I played 1 under. Obviously, I said, got the line movement there, played a few money lines. But there were 4 overs, all of which three I think I mentioned on the podcast yesterday morning, where I was like, I need to see umpires here before I bet them. Something seems off about this. I just felt like the market was a bit low overall yesterday on totals. And I got the same feeling yesterday projecting these games out that just in general, there's too many games where I think the line is too low compared to where it should be and where it would have been a few weeks ago. So as a result of unders just absolutely crushing for now 2+ months and the ROI being profitable to just blindly bet every single under, I do think the market has come down. And I think we're going to see an overcorrection or a regression in terms of overs cashing because the market has come down. I think books finally got sick of it and finally slashed some runs or half runs off of these totals. And I think we're getting value on the overs as a result. So regarding the Guardians and Reds matchup specifically, I didn't really have any analysis on this one. I have analysis on some of these other overs. I didn't really have any specific analysis here for why I like this over. I just make the total 8.8. So I would bet the over 8 and I'd take it up to 8.5 at minus. I'd take it up to even money at 8.5 compared to 8.8. But yeah, I just think in general, these totals are a little bit too low. Doesn't mean I don't have bets on unders. I still have 2 unders. 6 overs today, but I do think in general, we're going to be betting a little bit more overs than unders going forward, assuming this is where the market's going to settle because it does seem low right now.
All right, let's keep this over train rolling. The Rays get a chance to tee off against Lucas Giolito. 3 of his last 6 starts have been just full-fledged disasters, giving up 6 runs to both Texas and Atlanta, 7 runs in his last start against the Halos. You have to love the momentum going up against him. And then also this momentum from this lineup for the Rays. They've had 10 runs in 2 of their last 3 games. So it seems like they're turning the corner at the right time. This number's sitting at 9.5 up in Boston.
Yeah, I make this 9.9. So I take the over 9.5 to minus 105. You can take a juice 9 this morning. I bet 9.5 at plus money last night. As you mentioned, Giolito has just gotten blown up consistently. And I think this is a severely reduced pitcher compared to peak. Discussed this last week, but Giolito, every single number has moved in the wrong direction, and I don't think he has recovered from his UCL injury. Generally, you give guys 3 starts, 5 starts to see if the velo comes back, to see if the stuff comes back. Talked about that with Lance McCullers. McCullers' first 3 starts, awful. Last 3 starts, much, much better. And the stuff came all the way back. It just has not come back for Giolito. 5.8 expected ERA. 11% strikeout minus walk rate, which is around league average, but stuff plus 88, 94 pitching plus, he's just getting blasted. And these teams, went pretty deep into their bullpens last night because they ended up going to extras. Shouldn't say deep into their bullpens, but they did use high leverage relievers. The Red Sox used Chapman for a third consecutive day. They used Kelly and Bernardino for the third time in 4 days, and they also pitched Guerrero for 2 1/3 innings. So the Red Sox bullpen kind of needs Giolito to get through 4 or 5 innings here, and that means he's likely to give up 5 or 6 runs. The Rays used Clevenger, Rodriguez, and Fairbanks, all for a third time in 4 days yesterday, and Ozer pitched for the third time in 5 days as well. So I think both bullpens are a little bit beat up here. I should mention with Pepio too. Pepio's strikeout rate is down this season, and it is kind of carried into May as well. It hasn't really rebounded either. Strikeout rate down from 26% to 21%. His expected ERA up from 3.6 to 4.2. So Ryan Pepio is not going to be getting strikeouts as much as he used to. He's also much more vulnerable, and these teams need, a little bit of length from these starters that I don't think they're necessarily going to get quality length from. The last piece to mention is the weather, because I bet the under here yesterday. Yesterday, 59 degrees, wind blowing in. Today, 65 degrees, wind blowing out. So not completely opposite, because it's not like it's particularly hot, but wind direction is reversed. And I make this total about 9.9. So over 9.5 to minus 105 between the Rays and the Red Sox.
Our Express, I should say, barrels on into the desert as Seattle plays against the Diamondbacks, and they're drawing Brandon Pfaadt. The youngster has been giving up a ton of long balls this season. He's really lost the zone at times in the past month, and his expected ERA is now approaching 7. It seems like a simple over when you start to consider those things that the Diamondbacks are bringing to the pitching matchup. This total sitting at 8.5. Walk me through the price points and the number, whether it's going up or down a half run, and how you're playing it.
Yeah, take this to even money at 9. D-backs just play drunk games. It feels like 3, 4, or 5 times a week. They blew a 4-run 9th inning lead last night after I discussed their blowing up the Braves 6-run 9th inning lead last Friday. But, they had that crazy game with the Cubs at Wrigley earlier in the year. They played some crazy games with the Nationals. The Diamondbacks are playing the craziest games this season, and it's not particularly close in terms of who's playing like the wildest win probability swing games. Clearly Arizona. Now, these teams also went to extras last night, and Arizona ended up having to use 7 different relievers. Granted, only Kyle Backus and Jalen Beeks pitched on back-to-back days, but still 7 deep into their bullpen. Basically, everybody had to go. They've had guys pitch, multiple times this week who may not be as effective if they bring them out tonight. Mariners only went 4 deep into their bullpen, but they did use their best reliever, Andres Munoz, on a back-to-back, and they also used Legumina for 43 pitches. Always have trouble saying that one. That second N in Legumina really gets me. But yeah, Brandon Pfaadt just keeps blowing up. Did against the Rays in his last start. Since May 1st, so March and April, Pfaadt was fine. 3.4 expected FIP, 3.4 body ERA, great. Since May 1st, 8.8 ERA, 5.2 expected FIP, strikeout minus walk rate is halved to 8%, 98 stuff plus, 4.4 body ERAs. The pitch modeling metrics have plummeted. This has been a guy who is always rated extremely highly on pitch modeling metrics. In fact, his pitch modeling metrics have often greatly exceeded his on-field performance. Now they are below what he's actually doing on the field. So I think that should be a significant concern for Pfaadt. So the over between the Mariners and D-backs up to 9 at even money, and make this about 9.25.
Just to balance this out a little bit, let's hit your one under for your card here. Atlanta and Milwaukee sitting at 8.5. Decent pitching matchup between Holmes and Priester. But this really has to be about the Braves lineup and their offensive issues, which they persist even though they've been getting healthier. That was kind of the narrative. It's like, just wait until they have, all of their bats in this lineup and things are going to turn around. You could still argue that they're a bottom 5 offense in the NL, which is kind of crazy given their preseason expectations. But at this point, this is not just a 6-week stretch. This isn't a mini slump. This just could be who they are, having to rely on their pitching staff and grind out some lower scoring wins. So you're on the under here, 8.5. Is that essentially where it starts for you? Or is there something in the pitching matchup on both sides of this that indicate an under is more likely?
No, I think both of these guys are pitching a little bit better than what the market gives them credit for. Grant Holmes, I think it gets lost in his season-long numbers because he had a really rough April. He's kind of the inverse of Pfaadt, and these two faced off last week in that crazy D-backs Braves game. But the point going into that game was Grant Holmes has been really good since the start of May. Brandon Pfaadt has been terrible since the start of May. So Grant Holmes in May, his numbers look a lot like they did last season. 3.6 ERA, 3.1 expected FIP, 18% strikeout minus walk. Last year, 3.5, 3.5, 19%. Very, very similar to what he did last year. So even though the season long numbers kind of get masked by what he did in April, getting hit a little bit harder, he's found the movement and the grip and the location on his slider in May, and he's getting a lot more outs and doing it at a rate that he did last season, which frankly, those numbers reflect a caliber of a number 2 level starting pitcher. Against top offenses, I don't think he's that good, but against an offense like the Brewers, I think he can be that effective. Quinn Priester is doing some different things with the Brewers. They traded for him midseason, got him from the Red Sox. Former top pitching prospect or former number 1 pick. Hasn't really struck guys out at the major league level. Doesn't seem to have the stuff to really get by dudes or be a particularly effective pitcher. But the Brewers have modified him a little bit. Stop throwing his cutter, or stop throwing his fastball, stop throwing his curve and changeup as much as well. Started throwing a cutter, and they told him to throw his sinker more, and his ground ball rate is up to a career high 60%. So as long as Priester can keep the ball on the ground and Holmes keeps getting guys with that slider, I think we can keep this game under. I made this 8.1. It's the under 8.5 to minus 106. I do think, though, the Braves offense is due to just explode at some point, but we do not know when it's coming. But they do seem like they're all still kind of slumping together. Ozuna doesn't seem like he's 100% healthy. Acuna looks healthy, but, a matter of like stringing the hits together and getting all those guys going at the same time. Should mention Drake Baldwin looks like the rookie of the year. Just like visually, Drake Baldwin is phenomenal. Not only offensively with his at-bats, because he's taking really good plate appearances, deep plate appearances, taking a lot of pitches, but defensively. Guy is an absolute cannon and is a really good defensive catcher. So very impressed what I've seen visually from Drake Baldwin. But unfortunately, Atlanta's offensive core around him has just kind of been a letdown this year. So yeah, we'll see if the Braves can rally, but it's been a pretty disappointing few weeks and amid a disappointing long season, but big win yesterday. Maybe let's get some going.
Last play of the day for you, an over between the Dodgers and the Padres in San Diego. The question here starts with Dylan Cease. And last season, he had his lowest whip of his entire career. He had a 3.4 strikeout to walk ratio and his highest WAR since he finished second in the Cy Young race in 2022. What has happened to him? Because at this point, he's slid in terms of really where he should be considered in the pecking order, not only in his own rotation, but also in terms of potentially the trade market. Somebody who obviously in 2022 was pitching at a Cy Young level and all of a sudden has just fallen off a cliff. I mean, this can happen to pitchers, gradual decline, then all of a sudden it happens all at once. But is there anything that you're seeing mechanics-wise, pitch mix, anything that would indicate maybe he can get it turned in the right direction? It seems as though you don't believe that's going to happen tonight because you're targeting over 8.5.
I don't think it's going to happen tonight just because the Dodgers are a particularly tough matchup for Cease, and they've kind of owned him in his career. 839 OPS against Cease. Granted, the strikeouts have been there, but he has walked a bunch of guys. And I think that's the issue he's going to have with the Dodgers offense that most anybody does with the Dodgers offense. They take a lot of pitches. They're very patient. They're going to rack up his pitch count, and I'd expect them to get into this Padres bullpen fairly early. Now, in terms of the underlying indicators for Cease, it's basically identical to last year. His strikeout minus walk rate, 20.9%, exactly what he posted last season. 322 expected FIP. He was at 344 last year. 367 ERA, expected ERA. He was at 3.3 last season. Pitching plus body ERA, like within, a matter of points of one another. So under the hood, everything says Dylan Cease is just as good as he was last season. The issue has been the strand rate and the batting average on balls in play. Given up a 333 BABIP, 293 career, and he has a 66% strand rate versus 73% career. Now it's worth noting, great pitchers do strand guys more than the league average, right? And especially great pitchers who have a high strikeout rate tend to strand guys more than the league average. Cease has been below 70% for 3 straight seasons. I don't know if it is a wind-up versus stretch issue, where once guys get on base, the mechanics are not there, and as a result, he's not stranding guys as frequently. I need to compare his strikeout rates with guys on base versus bases empty. I would imagine you'll find bases empty, he has a higher strikeout rate and a more efficient strikeout and walk rate. And then when guys are on, he's less effective. And I don't think that's a mental thing. I think that's probably more of a mechanical thing where going from the stretch instead of the windup, he's just not as effective. Maybe the velocity's down slightly. I'm just speculating here, but seeing a low strand rate on him for 3 straight seasons, despite the fact that he has a very strikeout rate, I think does indicate that he probably is struggling more so with runners on base and just a less effective pitcher. But that said, I think the Dodgers will have guys on base. I think they're going to walk a lot. They should have a runner on first quite a bit with 1 out, no outs after a walk. So I do like the Dodgers offense to keep it going tonight. The Padres also, Tatis getting extended out, to needing them to pitch innings. They used Matsui, Reynolds, Suarez, and Peralta on back-to-backs the past 2 days. They've also used Estrada and Morejon 3 times in 4 days. They went to extras with the Dodgers last night. The Dodgers pen is in much better shape today. They only use Scott and Yates on back-to-back days. They are going with more of a bullpen game today. They're starting, I forgot who they said they're going to, Matt Sauer is going to start for them. You may get Jose Urena in there. Ben Kasparius could go. But they're starting Jack Dreyer tomorrow, I believe, as well. So, in terms of like being able to aggressively use the bullpen, that's not really something you can just assume tonight. They kind of need innings from their guys who they're going to throw out there. And Urena was the originally listed starter here. I don't have Urena pitching more than a couple of innings in this game, but I do think he will be a part of it. So, yeah, Dodgers less effective pitching than I would normally expect tonight, especially with their 2 best relievers down and trying to get through a bullpen game and having, they're starting Robleski tomorrow. So, having another like shaky starter going tomorrow, I think that really changes your bullpen usage today. And then the Padres bullpen is exhausted, but I don't think Cease is capable of going more than 4 or 5 innings here. So the over, I make it about 9. I take the over 8.5 to -110.
Before we call it a day, let's toss it over to Grant Neiffer from Scores and Odds for some home run bets on Tuesday.
All right, thanks, guys. It is Dinger Tuesday, and you know what that means. 50% profit boost over on FanDuel. I got some bangers over there. 3 home run bets to get a parlay to plus 18,500. That's 185 to 1. Let's get started with the first one, and a guy very close to my heart, Pete Alonso, plus 360 over there. He gets a matchup versus Mackenzie Gore, who grades out as just an average pitcher for righty power. But I don't care. Alonso has been fantastic this season. 17 home runs in 66 games. The barrel rate over 20%. The best of his career. He is hammering the ball, and he's been in great form recently. Even though Gore's a mediocre matchup for home runs, he still is a lefty. Alonso has a platoon split here. Humidity high over in New York. We have a 15% increase, 2 home runs according to Weather Edge. So good hitting weather, even in a just mediocre matchup. Plus 360 odds for Pete Alonso is far too high. Next up, we got Willy Adames, plus 420. He is playing over in Coors, going up against Palmquist. Palmquist, we don't have a huge sample size of him in the majors, but he's been crushed by righties so far. In 13 innings, over a 2 home run per 9 given up to righties, near a 50% fly ball rate. The weather is good over in Coors, 81 degrees, wind blowing out slightly. The ball is going to be flying. This is a massive, probably the biggest ballpark upgrade for Adames going from San Francisco over to Colorado. He still has some decent power, so getting these odds at plus 420 has some solid value here. And lastly, Fernando Tatis, plus 420 also. He's playing against the Dodgers. We don't know who the starting pitcher is going to be, but it looks like it could be Sauer. I have him at big plus odds or big edge here. The weather over in San Diego doesn't look like it's that great, but super humid over in San Diego. We have a 22% increase, 2 home runs, according to Weather Edge. Tatis has been fantastic so far this season. So regardless of what pitcher ends up starting, this is probably going to be a positive EV bet because it's not going to be a great pitcher regardless. But as of right now, probably Sauer, probably a huge edge. I have it at plus 380 as the true odds, so I'm rolling with it. One more picks like these. Go check me out on the Action app. I'm out of here. Bye, kids!
That'll do it for today's episode of Payoff Pitch. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to tail some of the bets that you heard from Sean and Grant in today's episode, look for the quick slip links in the episode description. Don't forget to download the free award-winning Action Network app and leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to the pod. Also, check out the Action Network Discord. There's a link in the episode description of this podcast for you to sign up there. We'll be back on Friday with more best bets. For Sean Zerillo, I'm Mike Calabrese. Thank you so much for listening to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. And as always, best of luck with all your bets.